We had been planning this road trip for months, me, Sam, and Tasha. A straight shot from DC to Miami, just three best friends ready to hit the beach and escape reality for a week. It was Sam's idea to leave at night. She swore it would be faster with less traffic. Tasha wasn't thrilled about it, but I figured as long as we took turns driving, we'd be fine. That was our first mistake. We packed the car, stocked up on snacks, blasted music, and hit the road. The first few hours were fun. The energy was high and we were laughing about the trip ahead. But as we got deeper into the rural highways of North Carolina, things started to feel off. The road stretched long and empty in both directions. The occasional gas station or truck stop looked abandoned, the fluorescent lights flickering like something out of a horror movie. Sam was driving while Tasha dozed off in the back. I kept an eye on the GPS, no signal. The road signs became less frequent, and the only sound was the humming of the car engine. Then, out of nowhere, the car jerked. The dashboard lit up. The check engine light. Sam swore under her breath and pulled over to the side of the road. When she turned the key, the engine made a horrible clicking noise. The car was dead. I checked my phone. No service. Tasha woke up groggy and annoyed. "We can call roadside assistance," she mumbled. But none of us had service, and we hadn't passed a gas station in miles. We sat there, the reality sinking in. Three girls alone, stranded on a dark, empty highway with nothing but woods and silence. Then, headlights appeared in the distance. A truck, big and rusted, slowed as it approached. The driver rolled down his window. A man, maybe late 40s, unshaven, wearing a greasy trucker hat. He said it looked like we had car trouble. Sam hesitated before nodding. The man scratched his chin, looking us over. He said not much was out here this time of night, and we were lucky he came by. He could give one of us a lift to the next town. Something about him made my skin crawl. His eyes lingered too long, his smile never quite reaching them. Tasha, always the cautious one, shook her head. She told him we were fine and we'd figure it out. The man's smile faded slightly. He said there wasn't much figuring it out if we were stuck. Silence. Then he added that the battery was probably shot and one of us should come with him. The town was about 20 minutes up the road and he could get us to a gas station. We all knew better than to split up. Sam forced a polite smile and told him we'd wait for another car, but thanks. The man didn't move. His grip tightened on the steering wheel. Then, slowly, he unbuckled his seatbelt. Tasha whispered for me to lock the doors. I pressed the button. The click echoed inside the car. The man's grin stretched wider. He told us not to be like that he was just trying to help. He reached for his door handle. Panic hit me like ice. Before he could get out, Sam grabbed the keys and tried the ignition again. The engine stuttered but didn't start. He stepped out of the truck. Sam tried again. The engine roared to life. She slammed her foot on the gas. Gravel spit up behind us as the car lurched forward. In the mirror, I saw the man just standing there watching us speed off. His truck still running, his hands in his pockets. And then, to my horror, I saw something else. Another man. He had been standing just behind the truck, hidden in the shadows. We never saw him before. We drove for miles, not stopping, not speaking. The gas light turned on. We had no choice but to pull into the next gas station we found. It was run down, deserted except for an old man behind the counter. Sam told him about the truck, about the two men. He didn't even look surprised. He just shook his head and said we were lucky. I asked him what he meant. He sighed and pointed to a corkboard by the door. It was covered in missing persons flyers. "Girls go missing around here all the time," he said. "Ain't no one ever finds them." We left that gas station, got back on the road, and never looked back. We made it to Miami the next day, but the trip wasn't the same anymore, because somewhere out there, on that empty highway, those two men were still waiting for the next stranded car. Vegas had been on our bucket list for years. After months of planning, me and my best friend Liv finally made it happen. We booked a week-long stay in an Airbnb just off the Strip, far enough to be affordable but still close to the action. The listing was perfect. A modern condo with sleek furniture, great reviews, and a host named Eric who seemed friendly in his messages. He even gave us a discount for booking an entire week. Everything seemed fine. The first couple of nights were everything we expected. Pool parties, casinos, rooftop bars. By the time we got back to the Airbnb each night, we were too exhausted to do anything but crash. But by the third night, things changed. We had spent the evening bar hopping, laughing about how our feet were already killing us, when we finally Ubered back to the condo around 2 a.m. As we stepped inside, Liv hesitated and asked if I had locked the door before we left. I told her I was sure I had, but when I checked, it was unlocked. I tried to shake it off. Maybe I had forgotten in our rush to leave. We double-checked everything, locked the door, and went to bed. A few hours later, something woke me up. A faint clicking noise. At first, I thought I had imagined it. Then I heard it again, the unmistakable sound of a key turning in a lock. My heart stopped. I nudged Liv, whispering that someone was at the door. She groggily sat up, but before she could ask what was happening, we both heard it. Slow, deliberate movement. The sound of the doorknob turning. The door creaked open. I held my breath. A shadowy figure stood in the doorway. For a moment, I couldn't move. Liv's fingers dug into my arm as we both stared in frozen terror. The figure stepped forward just enough for the light from the hallway to hit his face. My stomach dropped. It was Eric, our Airbnb host. He was just standing there, staring at us. His expression was blank, unreadable, but something about it made my skin crawl. Liv whispered that we should run. I couldn't even blink. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what to do. Then he took another step inside. I don't know what came over me, but I suddenly blurted out that we had a gun. My voice was shaking, but I tried to sound firm. I told him to get out, that the police were on their way. For a second, he didn't react, just stood there. Then slowly, he took a step back. I repeated myself, louder this time. Liv grabbed her phone and pretended to be on the phone with 911. Eric tensed up, his hands clenching at his sides. He looked at us for another moment before finally turning around and walking out the door. He shut it softly behind him, almost too calmly. We rushed to the door and locked it. Then we pushed a chair under the handle, barricading it as best as we could. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone as I dialed 911 for real. The police arrived within 10 minutes, but Eric was long gone. When the officers checked the apartment complex security footage, we saw something that made me sick. Eric had been standing outside our door for almost an hour before he even tried to come inside. The worst part? He had a copy of the key. The cops told us they'd try to track him down, but there wasn't much they could do unless he actually hurt someone. That didn't make us feel any better. We packed our bags and left immediately, checking into a hotel on the Strip instead. The next morning, Airbnb support contacted us. Eric's listing was gone. His profile had been deactivated. Just like that, it was as if he never existed. I still think about that night. I wonder if we had never woken up. Would he have come all the way inside? Would he have just watched us sleep? Or was he planning something much, much worse? I had been looking forward to this trip for months. A remote beachside resort in a small town along the coast, far from the noise of the city. The pictures online made it look like paradise. White sand, crystal clear water, and not a single soul in sight. It was the perfect escape. I arrived in the late afternoon. The town was quieter than I expected. I had imagined at least a few tourists, maybe some locals, but the streets were nearly empty. The taxi driver who picked me up at the small airport barely spoke, only giving me a strange glance in the rearview mirror when I told him where I was staying. The resort was old but beautiful, the kind of place that probably thrived decades ago before people moved on to newer, flashier destinations. The receptionist, an older woman with deep lines on her face, handed me the key and gave me a long, almost sympathetic look. The first night was peaceful. The waves crashed gently against the shore and the salty air was cool against my skin. I left the window open, letting the sound of the ocean lull me to sleep. But then I woke up. It was around 3 a.m. when I first heard it, a faint knocking at my door. Not loud, just slow, deliberate taps. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. The resort was nearly empty. I hadn't seen another guest since I arrived. I stayed still, listening. Maybe it was the wind? Then the knock came again. 3 slow taps. I held my breath and waited. A few seconds later, I heard footsteps moving past my door, stopping just outside my window. I didn't move. I didn't dare to look. The footsteps lingered for a moment, then continued down the hall. I stayed awake for hours, listening, waiting for them to return. The next morning, I told myself I was just imagining things. Travel exhaustion, jet lag. The town was old, the resort even older. It was probably just pipes creaking or the wind. But then things got worse. That afternoon, I decided to walk along the beach. The tide was low, revealing jagged rocks and pools of dark water. I wandered farther than I intended, snapping pictures of the sunset, when I saw something strange in the sand. Footprints. Not just any footprints, they were bare, deep, and they started from the middle of the beach, as if someone had just appeared out of nowhere and walked toward the water. But what unsettled me the most was that there were no footprints leading back. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I quickly turned around and walked back to the resort, telling myself it was just an illusion in the sand. But when I got back to my room, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The window, which I was sure I had locked, was slightly open. I shut it and double-checked the lock. That night, I tried to sleep, but the uneasiness stuck with me. I left the bathroom light on, just in case. Sometime past midnight, I woke up again. This time it wasn't knocking, it was breathing. Heavy, raspy breathing just outside the window. Slow and deliberate, like someone was standing right there, watching me. I squeezed my eyes shut, my entire body frozen. Then I heard it, the window latch clicking. I jumped out of bed and flipped on the lights. The window was still locked, but outside, just beyond the glass, I saw footprints in the sand, deep, bare footprints leading from my window to the water. At this point, I knew I couldn't stay another night. I grabbed my bag and went straight to the front desk, ready to check out. The receptionist wasn't there. The lobby was empty, but behind the desk, I saw something that made my blood turn to ice. An old guest book, open to a page from years ago. The names were faded, but I recognized my room number. And beneath it, written over and over again in shaky handwriting, were the words, "Don't open the window. Don't listen to them. Don't follow them to the water." I ran. I didn't even bother calling a taxi. I grabbed my bag and walked straight into town, not stopping until I found a bus station. I took the first bus out and I never looked back. A week later, curiosity got the best of me. I searched for information about the resort. It had been abandoned for years. The building had been bought and reopened multiple times, but strange disappearances kept forcing it to shut down. Most of the missing guests had never been found, the ones who had washed up on shore days later. To this day, I still don't know what was outside my window that night, but I do know one thing. I will never ever ignore a warning again.